Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and of course more Elden Ring and again the Elden Ring Incantations tier list, but this time for patch 1.07 because about 2 months ago or so I made this tier list and then like a week to 2 weeks later it was basically invalidated by the big 1.07 patch which changed a lot of incantations. Also of course in the feedback and comments of that video people were like, well, you should have included this, or I thought that. So with the new changes in 1.07 and some valid criticism and suggestions, we've included and changed some things with the list, so we're going over it once again. This is our tier list. We have S, A, B, C, and D because there are a lot of incantations. Some of them are useful undeniably, but compared to some of the best, of course, they're a lower grade. This isn't every incantation in the game. It's the ones that I believe are most relevant that I'm talking about. With all that said, though, let's begin. Starting with what I believe is basically the best offensive incantation in the game, Giantsflame. Technically, it is essentially just charge up a fireball and throw it at your enemy. You can charge it up to deal more damage, and it does ridiculous damage at that. It was already S tier in the previous list, but in 1.07, they decided to make it cheaper on your FP. Don't know why, it was like the best incantation, but sure, I'll take that. Why wouldn't I take that? So it's slightly better than it was, and it was already basically the best offensive incantation. Another incredible offensive incantation, though, was, of course, Bestial Sling, which is still an S tier in my opinion, but definitely lower on that grade because in 1.07 they did a bunch of stuff to it. They reduced the sort of scatter randomness, which is good, but they reduced that aspect that allowed you to increase its range in a way that you really shouldn't be able to, and made it so that the 2 hits of this attack are always close range, which is fair enough, but is a clear nerf. Also, it has less poise damage, so it staggers people less effectively and works as an interrupt chip damage, still, but less effective. So I'll probably put it at the bottom of S tier. Next up then, the new things for A tier, such as the Lightning Spear, which a bunch of you guys were like, this incantation really should have been on the list. And yeah, I reckon it should have been. It's ultimately a really nice, ranged, chargeable incantation that can be thrown in water as well, causing it to do a little AoE. Single target, it's effective, it's very viable in both PvP or PvE, whether you're throwing out the quick or charged version. In 1.07, they increased the attack power when charged, making it even better. So back then, it deserved to at least be talked about. Now, I reckon it's a solid A tier thanks to that. Dropping down to B tier because there's been a lot of changes in B tier compared to S and A, starting with the Stone of Garang, which I put firmly at high B. Not on the previous list. I feel it deserved to be maybe a C grade in hindsight. It does reasonable damage, but the main thing is it's a giant rock, which has really good stagger potential, especially against larger foes like giants. In 1.07 though, they made it better. They reduced how much stamina it costs, they increased its attack power, they improved the stamina attack power against someone that's trying to block against it, and most importantly, they extended the impact area of the projectile, meaning it's a lot more consistent in landing in both PvE and PvP. It is significantly better across the board, certainly a useful incantation thanks to its high stagger potential. Another incantation not on the list before, but I reckon really should be, is Black Flame. Also in B grade, thanks to the fact that you can get it very early game, fling it at a foe, and deal great burn damage, especially to bosses. Therefore, it's really effective from the moment you get it and the moment you start using it. Better in PvE because of higher health pool bosses, but good in every scenario, really. In 1.07, it had a slight improvement at being better against guarding enemies, but that's it. It would probably be a low B for me, though. A couple of other incantations that really should have been on the list but weren't were Dragon Maw, which is a nice B grade to me, and Dragon Claw, which is another B grade. Both are high damage, hyper armored, sort of physical attacks of those dragon transformations. I really like the Claw for its slam and the fact if you get 2 seals in both hands, you can infinite combo this. Also great in early game, but effective overall thanks to its stagger and damage potential. The Claw was improved in 1.07, making it cheaper on FP, which is a big deal. They improved its directional control, which is a big deal. And there's that generic improvement of, against guarding foes, break their stamina easier. On the other hand, Dragon Maw is more of a high damage, more expensive, more effective bite. But it had a really big problem where honestly, you could miss it pretty easily. It also was buffed. Again, it's cheaper on the FP, but most importantly, the hitbox around the dragon's neck area has actually been enlarged to make it easier to hit enemies at that close range to deal with that problem. So it's actually significantly better and definitely deserves to be on this list thanks to the raw output and potential of it. Lastly, for the B tier then, we have one more new addition, or improvement specifically. It is the Black Blade, which is a newly B tier up from a C tier incantation in my opinion. In 1.07, they buffed the Destined Death effects to last a lot longer. In this specific case, they reduced its stamina consumption. They improved its turning performance, and the recovery time is much better, which is really important. The sword and wave attack have been changed so you can hit them both at the same time, meaning the melee burst potential is way better. They have made some interesting sort of changes to it, such as decreasing the number of times the wave can actually hit large enemies. There was a bit of a bug with it where you could hit multiple times, but overall it's definitely better and more viable. But compared to the weapon ashes that give Destined Death, I still think it's the worst option of the three, so I won't put it higher than a B. Okay, down to C grade, we have some other changes, such as Unendurable Frenzy here. Very small, they made this cheaper on the FP. It's that channeled walking forward aspect of the frenzy. Very powerful and a little overly powerful in the past. It's been changed in various ways and it's still good in PvP, and it now being cheaper on FP is certainly a good thing, but I think it's still a C grade despite that. Much like Frenzied Burst, which was also improved this patch. It's got better poise damage, but more importantly, it deals more damage when fully charged. That is very nice, but still post Madness nerf, I think it just serves as a useful burst or snipe tool, but it's not as crazy as it once was, so still a C grade at best. Lastly, for change in 1.07, we're down to D grade because yeah, I'm keeping Howl of Shabriri down here. As good as a 25% improvement to your damage is, problem is obviously it also massively reduces your defenses. Anyone that uses this against me in PvP, I'm like, they're gonna hit hard, but I'm probably gonna one-shot them. So in the scenario where you can benefit from that big damage buff, fair enough, it's good, and that's why it makes it onto the list, just barely. In 1.07, they extended the duration of the buff, so it's better, but not in a really relevant way to bring up its grade. All right, so those are the major changes of 1.07, and generally with the list, let's blast through the rest that I believe are great and where I would place them compared to the rest. We'll start from the bottom and go up though. First, in D tier, we have the Fire's Deadly Sin, which is that same buff that hurts you over time, but deals damage to enemies over time. Has some uses, like breaking the frost procs so that you can get more frost procs, but overall, it was once insane. Now it is just barely relevant, making it onto the list, but only again in D tier. Above that in C tier, I'm going to keep the Black Flame Blade in C tier, despite some people saying that maybe it could be higher up. This one just is a really short-lived buff. As cool as it is, as effective as it is, I've even done builds with it. I like it. It just lasts too little. If it lasted longer, it'd be less awkward. I buff up, I get Blackfire on my weapon, and enhance my Ashes of War with that Blackfire effect, making it a really useful, cool incantation. But ultimately, there's another one that does the same thing but better. That is Blood Flame Blade, which is of course still an A tier pick. You get the cursed flame anyway, but then you also got bleed build up, and again it enhances in the same way that weapon buffs like this do. Your Ashes of War, you can turn your ashes into ranged bleed options, or they just build up bleed as part of it, on top of your weapon damage itself. So it's significantly better between the two, though Black Flame is useful against bosses. Another one still in C tier, which cannot really go higher than that, is the Unchanged Law of Regression, which is that hilarious ability to remove players of their buffs, which is great in certain duels or invasions more likely, where you're dealing with someone who's buffing up so much that it's annoying and you don't want to deal with it. It serves no major purpose other than that one law thing, so C tier seems fair. Much like the, sadly, Placidusax's Ruin, which is cool as hell with its laser fire style attack, but because you have no control and you're so vulnerable when you're in it, the opponent has to mess up for this to be effective. Meanwhile, in a boss fight, you're gonna get slapped out of it. It needs to deal way more damage, or have some hyper armor, or give me more control over it. It needs improvements, and I'm sad that it saw none. This brings us up from C grade to B grade. I'm going to start talking about the heal, the basic heal. Any heal, really. It's a quick cast heal. That's always good, but it's the fact that it hard counters Revenants, the most annoying enemy in the game. By simply dropping one of these, you'll burst them for loads of health and stagger them, leading to a free critical, turning an enemy that is a nightmare to fight in every build-in scenario, unless you just pop one of these heals. Lastly, for B tier, we have, like the last time, a bunch of dragon transformations to talk about. That's the the ice, the magic, the magma, and of course, the fire in their basic or upgraded forms. All of them I consider a nice B tier. To cut to the chase on these, they're effective in what they do. Whether you want ice, whether you want magic damage, whether you want magma, whether you want fire, they're all good and best used against foes that are weak to that. Of course, I would still love to see more control over my character when doing these things, or some hyper armor to more secure them actually going off. But none of them were even remotely changed this patch, except for one, which I rate as the best one, Greyol's Raw, which has been made slightly cheaper on the FP. It was always very good and just one that you can pop at any time and benefit from, and because it's the only one that's been improved this patch, I believe it's the best of that set. Let's blast through some of our A tier picks then. Starting with Flame, which I previously put as a B tier, but now I put as an A tier, having used it a bit more myself, and now, in my opinion, realize it's stronger. While there is another form of this style of shotgun fire that I believe is better for a specific reason, the output cannot be denied of this shotgun of fire. I work into the occasional build that can, and it's awesome, especially in PvP, where I can use it as a sudden combo to catch someone out and burst them down. Or in PvE, where the enemy is weak to fire in any way, I can actually just tap it. You know, I don't have to full charge this to get the most DPS out. I can just benefit from having the fire damage. A point-blank combo ability like this is just so cool and so useful. Also an A grade still is Swarm of Flies. There's not much to say about it. While it was nerfed from its previous form that was a bit quicker and more effective, it's still ultimately a range bleed pressure. And I love this thing any build for PvP where I want to throw it out, watch it chase the enemy down, and then I'll pressure them with another attack at the same time, and that works insanely well. Pest Threads, by comparison, is one that's a bit more questionable. I think it's very strong though. Super quick casts that track really well, even on enemies that run right past them. They are physical, so you can improve their damage by improving your AR, which is really cool, and works in even bestial incant builds. You can spam this, chain casting it for really high DPS. There's never a time where I don't think this works well. Just like the best dragon incantation still, in my opinion, is Zeke's Decay, which is the Scarlet Rot breath attack of the dragon transformations. Being able to pop one of these and just get some Scarlet Rot on a boss is insanely effective. It's also got huge range, great in AoE scenarios, and in PvP, it's just a nightmare to deal with, especially in open areas during invasions. Out of all of the dragon breath attacks, I just think you get the most bang for your buck with this Scarlet Rot version. Lastly, we have that one we talked about last time, Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike, which is essentially an insane PvE melt spam option. It did not really need changes in this patch, and that's probably why it didn't get any. The output and boss fights with this thing is stupid, and this red lightning, it looks really cool. There's something you don't really see in PvP because you can't really get the same effect, but it's undeniably super strong in PvE against bosses. Okay, we're already at the end here with the S tier picks. Last 4 incantations. We have the 2 buffs. We have Golden Vow and we have Flame Grant Me Strength. As always, Golden Vow costs a bit more FP, but you get some defensive options as well as the AR improvements. Very good in many builds, whereas Flame Grant Me Strength, it improves your attack power and your fire affinity power. So if you're using fire in any way, this is insanely good. And of course, if you want to improve your AR on your weapon, which basically every build wants, it's great there too. They're both S tier for obvious reasons. I've just realized I've put them the wrong way around. This is Catch Flame and this is the other Flame. But now using the correct icon, I can talk about Catch Flame, which is the weaker version of Flame, but comes out quicker, and often that's better. Comboing off of a basic attack combo, burning an enemy for fire damage, it serves all the same purposes that we talked about before with Flame, but you can get it earlier, you can use it easier. It works in more builds, and it's tied to, of course, quick casting or chain casting, where you use this while jumping in the air, then follow it up with the incantation that you want to use after that, and get a much faster cast off, making it inherently powerful in any spell casting or incantation build. Undeniably, insanely effective for those reasons. Lastly, Honed Bowl, which some people felt shouldn't been an S tier. And in hindsight, I think I agree. I think it's a top tier A pick. You can absolutely blast this from ridiculous range with lightning damage on a target, spamming it, which works really well in PvE or PvP. You can chain cast this one for it to come out lightning quick. It's undeniably super effective as an ability and really cheap and easy to run in different builds. So I still weigh this as a top tier incantation, but I guess S tier was a bit much, and that's fair. But there you have it. That is our complete tier list, and I've just organized it so the strongest is on the left and the weakest is on the right for each individual tier. If you guys have any thoughts about the tier list, maybe any other incantations that should have been included, have I missed any that were changed in 1.07 that made them a lot more relevant? But hopefully, after we upload this, a week later, it won't be invalid by some big patch that changes all of them. But we'll have to wait and see. If you've enjoyed the tier list video though, let me know with a like on the video, and if there's a topic you'd like me to cover with a tier list, then you can drop that in the comments too. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thank you for watching, we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.